Carlos Alcaraz is rewriting all the record books after capping off a historic US Open 2022 title run with a 6-4 to 6-7, 6-6-3 win over Casper Ruud. Alcaraz is now the youngest world number one in ATP history and the youngest Slam champ at 19 since fellow Spaniard Rafa Nadal won his first major in Paris back in 2005. Looking at the match, Casper had 2 break points, being up 1-love 15-40 on Alcaraz's serve. He wasn't able to get a return back in play, and that was essentially a boomerang break because Carlos broke that very next game, in part due to some sloppy form from Casper. Despite facing a break point the very next game, Carlos held serve for the rest of the set, which helped him clinch the set. Ruud didn't return that well, to be honest, which allowed Alcaraz to step up and do well and more damage off the serve. Carlitos made 63% of first serves and won 75% of points off the first serve, while Casper made about 50% of first serves and won 67% of points off the first serve. Casper upped his first serve percentage in that second set though, over 15 percentage points in fact, which was why he remained unbroken throughout. Carlos did have a break point at 2-all in the second set, but Ruud saved it with a great serve. This time it was Ruud who sealed the boomerang break as he was able to take advantage of some additional second serve looks up from Carlos and showcase some incredible defense to gain the upper hand. Casper managed to break again thanks to him putting many more returns both back in play and with greater depth. The second serve was also a big factor in the second set as Casper went for a bit more on that, which paid off tremendously as he won 78% of second serve points, which is incredible. Carlos wasn't able to attack that second serve as much as he was able to in the first set, while Ruud did more of that himself, which is why he won 60% of second serve return points. We saw a trade of breaks to open up the third set due to respective dips in level. Ruud breaking was more due to a dip in Alcaraz's level as he simply made too many uncharacteristic errors. After that, the break ceased for the rest of the third, although it wasn't smooth sailing for either player. Both Carlitos and Casper had slight openings to grab a break in that third set. Ruud more so, especially after having set points up 6-5. The main issue was Casper just being too defensive and tentative on return, landing it way too short on the first occasion, which allowed Alcaraz to take control up at net and finish up at net. Casper's return was a bit better on that second point he held, and he wasn't as much at fault as Carlos got it to the weaker, more spinny backhand which popped up, allowing Alcaraz to come in and dictate. Carlos's mantra of cabeza, corazón, and cojones, which translates to brain, heart, and balls, exuded within him there and throughout this entire match and tournament. Ultimately, in the big moments, Casper might have had the brain or the heart, but he lacked the balls of Carlos to keep going for his shots, even in the tighter crucial moments. That 6-5 game was the big turning point of the entire match, as I feel that Ruud would have had the edge with a 2-1 lead. Even if it did go to 5 sets in that case, I slightly favor Casper as he'd have far more left in the tank, with Alcaraz playing 3 straight 5-setters prior to this one. Alcaraz ran away with the tiebreak, only dropping 1 point as Ruud was rattled. That tiebreak was his poor stretch of the entire match by far, as he shanked quite a few backhands and made some uncharacteristically wild misses. It was just a sign of lost focus with the way he was pulling up on those forehands and being off balance. In that fourth set, Casper's level improved back to his normal high level here as the errant errors were no more and the serve percentage elevated. However, Alcaraz, sensing his moment, made one final push and got the lone necessary break he needed at 3-2, which he kept until the very end, where he sealed the match with the final unreturnable. I thought a big contributor to Alcaraz's success here was his serve. He served surprisingly well in this final, and I say surprisingly because he did not back up his serve that well in the center match, for example, as Jannik had looks in virtually each of his service games at one point. Last night he did a much better job at holding his own and preventing Casper from getting involved. A lot of people were expecting Ruud to outserve Carlos, but that wasn't the case at all. Carlos's return was also great, but that's generally his strong suit, so I'm not surprised by how well he did in that aspect. The defensive course was also a big contributor to Carlitos' success, as his scrambling skills definitely got him some extra points. It's incredible too when you think about all the mileage he's had this fortnight and him just seeming like he's played no 5-setters at all in this final, just where he was scrambling all across the court. He honestly at times looked the fresher of the two. Now, giving Casper his 10s, with his latest final run, the Norwegian rises to a career-high ranking of world number 2, and I actually really like him there, though I do believe Rafa should probably take that spot instead. Casper has had top 3 level results, making 2 major finals in one season. That's over 2,500 points right there. Then all those smaller 250 titles add up, regardless of whether you say they're vultured or not. This was a very good showing for him in this final, and he looked far more comfortable than in the French Open finals this year, where he looked totally overwhelmed by the occasion of playing Rafa. I feel like Casper's definitely a bit snubbed in terms of mainstream attention received. The ESPN commentators, for example, often mistakenly called him by his father's name, Christian, which was cringe. Then 90% of this final, their focus was on Carlos, but Casper deserves his respect too. Ruud is just a really talented and good player, but most importantly, he's just an overall good guy. You really can't complain or criticize his character, and I know his game isn't the most exciting for some, but that game's clearly good enough. I wonder if Casper will break through and win a slam. It's once again nice to see him break through at the bigger stages, and period, especially on non-clay ones as well. Of course, he made the finals of Miami as well, where he also fell to Carlitos. Ruud has beaten everyone he's supposed to beat pretty much, and he's taken advantage of good draws. It's not his fault that his fellow top 10, top 15 peers are losing to players they have no business losing to. It is pretty wild to think that Casper's made more slam finals than Zverev and Tsitsipas, for example, but I guess good always prevails in the end. Hopefully he gets more attention and spotlight, because I do feel like he has just a really complete package in terms of his game. He reminds me a lot of Jessica Pegula, except he was actually able to make it past that quarterfinal slam hump. Ruud gave us an entertaining match. I enjoyed seeing him venture forward, hitting those volleys from his shoestrings, while Alcaraz was deep behind the baseline, scrambling and defending for his life. Now, going over and talking about Carlos, I am very glad that he's world number 1. I do think that he deserves it. And I know people have been making the case for Novak being the true deserving number 1, and there being an asterisk next to Alcaraz's name because of the Serbian, of course, not being able to compete in the 2 hardcore slams this season due to his unvaccinated status against COVID. That argument is total BS to me, because Novak wasn't forced to miss out on those slams and Masters events. He made a choice, and he has to live with the repercussions for said choice, unfortunately. I believe Nadal fans have a greater say here in this argument, because he won 2 slams and made the semifinals of Wimbledon. Had Wimbledon awarded ranking points, Nadal would obviously have more points himself. However, we do have to keep acknowledging that the most recent world number 1, Daniil Medvedev, was barred from competing there, so he has a bit of a say there as well. Regardless, reiterating my point, Carlitos fully deserves this top spot with the season he's had, winning 2 1,000 titles, 2 500s, and now a Grand Slam. I believe he's the title leader for 2022 and is honestly in close contention with fellow Spaniard Rafa for Player of the Year. It depends on how both these men do in the last few tournaments of the season, especially the year-end championships. I feel like this is one of the best, if not the best, debut slam title runs in the history of the sport. Alcaraz won back-to-back 5-setters and had to come back from a breakdown in the 5th against Cilic and save match point in that epic 5-hour affair with Sinner, which he had no business losing and no business winning. He then had another electrifying match with Francis Tiafoe in the semifinals, which lasted over 4 hours as well. Carlos has shown his resolve exceptionally well, especially because in all 3 of these matches, all 3 of those 5-setters, he had opportunities to win easier than he did, but he didn't get too down on himself, and he kept working his way back to victory. Both he and Iga have been inspiring in that regard, where they faced a tremendous amount of adversity, but handled it all with class and just fight their way back. This is actually the longest anyone's ever spent on court in a major in the Open era, 23.5 hours, which is literally making it the most hard-fought slam title run to date. To do this, but not only win your first slam title at 19, this man is destined for greatness. I was equally impressed by how well he handled his nerve and held it when it came time to close, because he played for a lot, but he handled it with ease in that last game, serving nothing but bombs. I was lucky enough to actually witness him play his first round match live here this year, and he simply oozes star power. I truly believe Alcaraz has raised the bar and level of tennis overall on tour. The most impressive thing about him is that all of his opponents played their best matches against him. Now, he's truly great for the sport of tennis. Now, Carlitos wasn't the only one who made history this weekend, as 16-year-old Alexandra Ayala won the juniors girls title to become the first Filipina to win a junior slam title. Not only did Alex win the juniors, but she did so without dropping a single set, so she's definitely going to be one to look out for. Meanwhile, congratulations are in order for Barbora Krejcikova and Katerina Siniakova as they clinched the career golden slam in doubles after taking home the women's title. The pair defeated Americans Taylor Townsend and Katie McNally, who were leading 6-3, 4-1, but ended up losing 3-6, 7-5, 6-1. This is actually the second straight time that McNally's lost a US Open women's doubles final, as last year her and Coco fumbled as well. This was disappointing because I really wanted Taylor to have her moment and shine after all the adversity she went through. It's still an incredible feat that she was able to make a slam final 18 months after the birth of her son. It does suck that Patrick McEnroe had to present her the finalist trophy because he was so vile and nasty to Taylor when she was a junior, as when he was the head of the USTA, he discriminated against her because of her weight. Regardless of Patrick's ignorance, I know for sure that Taylor will rise and bounce back even stronger to get that slam title. That's all I have for this video, and let me know in the comments whether you agree that Carlitos' win is one of the biggest and best slam title achievements in the history of the sport. Also, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post new content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Grand Slam Tennis News Today.